Hey everybody. Thanks again so much for all of the support, the kind messages, and for your interest in Kineto. I just want to give you a quick walkthrough of the panels so you can find your way around. First over here, you have the project panel. Your comps and videos and all your assets exist in here. You can make folders. You can import things, add new comps. There's your import button and delete, or actually just push the delete button. Um, you have colors and swatches over here. If this doesn't show up for you, it's up here in panels. You have gradients, a bunch of color controls. If I go to, like this one, okay, I've got a gradient, a linear gradient on the fill, and on the stroke, it's just gray because you can't see it. But you can change that here. And you can come down to the gradient section and you can reverse things. You've got some other settings here. If you hit the sorry, let me expand this. Okay, there's a save button here. If you if you click that, it'll come down into your swatches, and you can save swatches. If I go back up here to let's just choose the stroke and I'll pick a different color. I can come down here and hit plus and add that to my swatches. And you've got a random button here if you want some inspiration from something. There's a sync button, so you can sync all colors to a swatch and update the swatch to have it update everything else. And there's an apply button here. If I select the star here, I can click apply. Well, let me actually choose the fill and click apply. And if I choose the sync button, it's kind of like adding an expression to it, except it's better. Um, but I'll just choose that gradient again. And over here in the properties panel, you have all your settings that can be animated and basic controls for layers. I'll change this radial gradient to a radial. And you can see you've got these gizmos in the viewer. This is the viewer window, and you can control things here. Right now, I've got snapping and a grid turned on. You've got some grid controls over here. Might be hard to see on the screen capture, but there's a if I no, still can't see it much, but there's a grid there. Trust me. And there's a snapping button here, and some other interface things you can turn on if you want. But over in the properties, we have all the basic things you would expect for a shape layer to have. You can control points, and these little buttons right here are how you animate things. So you click that to add a keyframe. Below the shape settings, we've got geometry operators, where you can add repeaters and other effects. You've got effectors, step, fall off, color. So let's say I have a repeater and then I add a color effector. You've got controls here for all of that. And this all depends on what order it's in. So you can change the order, and you'll get different effects, different results that way. Underneath that are your transforms. Um, One of the powerful features is kind of like a node system where um, you can um, you can animate things this way, or you can click on the plus layered button, and you have even more control over how many operators you have and the order that they're in. By default, that's turned off to keep it a little more simple, but there's a ton of control here if you want it. And then you have the effects. You can add a Gaussian blur or whatever, and a glow. And again, this will depend on like what order things are in. If I turn the threshold down and maybe the blurring is turn off the background so you can see that. Um, and yeah, that's the effects. Um, and up here, obviously, is the layers panel I've been working with. Something cool about this is if I draw just a polygon, I can select two layers here, shift click, and Command G to group them. And I still have these layer controls. I can control these independently, reorder them, but now they're in a group, and I can control the group. And it has its own transforms. So it's kind of like a parent, and but it's also kind of like precomposing layers, except that you can see everything all at once. You don't have to go digging through comps. And it also acts as an adjustment layer or a folder in Photoshop. So I could add a blur to this, and it's only going to blur those elements in that. I can draw a rectangle, and you can see if I put this in the background, this is still in focus, and only the group is getting the blur. So I'll delete that. Command Shift G to ungroup that, and that just got rid of the group and brought everything else back out. You can, I'll just click on the background again and lock it so I don't keep selecting it. And then you have your visibility, your solo effects. You have drop shadow, glow, and outer color overlay right now. And these are layer styles. I think I'm going to get rid of these because After Effects has it because Photoshop had it. It doesn't really make sense to have it natively. If I don't need it, I could just add effects instead of adding another layer style and making things a little more confusing, and just have a little bit more control if I just put it on the effects. So you do have glow and drop shadows here in the stylized section. These all exist up here in the effects too. And I'll just talk about the panel real quick. Composition, layers, new cameras, new lights for your 3D compositions. You can turn panels on or off here. You've got an assistant. If you have Claude installed, you can do things with this, developing tools or plugins, or just telling it to add a blur to a layer. It can do that. You do have to connect it up one time, and after you do that, it shouldn't ask you again. So down here we have our layers panel, or timeline, sorry, but you will see that it does keep in sync with what's going on in your layers, so you can control it either way. But if you add keyframes, you'll see those down here. If I just do a radius, for example, there it is. If I hit G, that'll bring up my graph editor, and I can change this to something like a bounce, and it'll bounce. And this is going to get some redesign. Right now, you can't create your own easing, and that's a pretty big limitation. So I'm going to fix that and give you some control over these presets with the bounces and the eases. And you'll be able to save presets and everything like that. So that's the graph editor. Hit G again to get rid of that. If you don't need to see the timeline, you can double click it to hide it and just work in this kind of design mode. Lost my star. So that's a quick preview. Again, you can import videos. If I just drag one of these out here, you've got some blending modes you can play with here. For example, I could add that and then add a levels and control that way. If you undo or twirl down this arrow, you've got your matte and parenting parenting options here. You see these icons. These will get added as soon as you start adding effects or modifiers. If I delete that, that icon goes away. And yeah, so that's a quick walkthrough. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll keep making some videos to show you some of the 3D settings, and whatever else you want to see. There's a lot of effectors for the shapes, geometry operators, fall offs that are some of them are built in, but and then like presets you can apply to things. Um, so play around. There's a lot more to come, and I hope you like it. Thanks. Bye.